Now, the rest of the story. It was summertime in Kansas City, Missouri. A 9-year young Wally was on the porch playing with the toys gathered there. Nothing could have fascinated the youngster more. His favorites were a wind-up car, which he could make go very fast up and down the planking, and a toy train, with all sorts of cars between the engine and the caboose. Yes, the train was his most favorite of all. But there was just one thing about the toys on the porch. They were not Wally's. Neither was the porch, nor the home to which it belonged. The people who lived in that house, including the child who truly owned those toys, Wally had never met. Wally had never wanted to leave the farm. It was all his father's idea. With the money left over from auctioning the property, Dad bought a newspaper delivery route. The paper was the Kansas City Star, and the price of the route at $3 per customer was $6,000. So Wally's dad was demanding of his delivery boys, most of all Wally himself. While the other fellows earned $3 a week, Wally, for the same and sometimes more work, received nothing. "I feed and clothe you," was Dad's excuse to his son. There were 2 deliveries a day, the Morning Times and the Evening Star. It meant getting up at 3:30 every morning and venturing out in pouring rain or blinding blizzard. It meant depositing each paper inside the storm door in damp or winter weather. It meant placing each paper under a brick when there was the slightest wind. To discourage his delivery boys from flinging their newspapers, Wally's father forbade the use of bicycles, and so it was that Wally would trudge through his route of many dozens of houses carrying his papers in a sack, seeing all of those homes much grander than his own up close, because the family was anything but well off. Wally got only practical presents for birthdays and Christmases, clothing and the like, never any toys. So, when Wally came to this one particular house on his newspaper route, he would always hesitate for a long moment, gaze up at the wide porch and the big front door with a tinge of longing. Some very fortunate youngster lived in that house, Wally could tell, for occasionally during spring and summer mornings the child's toys would be left out on the porch. Out of convenience or neglect, marvelous toys, miniature cars and trains, and so, whenever he felt particularly bold, little Wally, who had no toys of his own, would stop and play in the dawn's early light, just for a while, and then he would carefully leave the toys in precisely the same positions in which he had found them. Some day he promised himself he'd have a toy train like the one that belonged to the little boy he'd never met, even if he had to grow up to get one. One day Wally grew up, and because he did, each generation of children ever since has had a happier, more wonder-filled childhood. For those who knew anything about him personally, knew that Wally, cartoonist and creator of the world's most fabulous amusement parks, Walt Disney, had a particular passion for miniature trains. And now, of course, you know why. For now you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. It seems that our minds revert back to childhood when we see a model train. Even the most black-hearted of men pause when they see a model train running along a track. I'm speaking from experience because I am a vintage model train collector. Something about trains sparks our imaginations. Perhaps that's why Walt Disney was so enchanted with them. And enchanted he was. Walt Disney, well, he had a tendency to go overboard with things. Maybe it would be better to say that he often took things to the next level. Walt's attraction to trains was stronger than in most other young boys his age. Perhaps it was because his father had worked on a train track installation crew for the Union Pacific Railroad. His uncle drove a locomotive for the Santa Fe Railway. As a teenager, Walt sold newspapers, candy, cigars, and other products on Missouri Pacific Railway's trains. Rumor has it that Walt would bribe the engineers and firemen with chewing tobacco to allow him to stay in the cab and watch them operate the locomotive, which was normally off limits. As Mr. Harvey pointed out, Walt did not have a train set as a child. He bought his first train set, a Lionel train set, when he was 46 years old. By this time, Walt's studio had already created Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, Bambi, and many others. Walt was content with his 027 scale train set, similar to the one that I just showed you, until he learned that two of his core animators, Ollie Johnston and Ward Kimball, had 1/8 scale model steam trains which were large enough to ride on. Oh, Walt had to have his own ride-on train set. In 1949, Walt purchased a 5-acre plot of land for the sole purpose of building a 1/8 scale model railroad. With the help of Ollie and Ward, Walt laid nearly a half-mile of railroad tracks on the land. Due to the address of the land, 355 Carrollwood Drive, Walt named his model steam railway Carrollwood Pacific Railway. Walt left room within the layout of tracks for a home for his family. Now, how would your spouse feel about your entire yard being taken up by a model railroad? Well, Walt's wife Lillian was none too pleased with her lack of a normal yard. Walt came up with a solution. Lillian wanted a flower garden. Walt wanted a tunnel. Every train needs a tunnel. Walt built a tunnel over a portion of the tracks, had soil placed atop the tunnel, and Lillian got her flower garden. Also, Walt named the train after his wife. He called it the Lily Bell. Lily for Lillian, and Bell, which meant beautiful. Beautiful Lillian. That must have earned him some brownie points. Walt had his engineers at the studio build Lily Bell. Everything was built exactly to scale. Even the coal which fueled the steam train was resized to be in perfect scale. Walt's engineers created 6 cast metal wood grain pattern gondolas, 2 box cars, 2 stock cars, a flat car, and a wooden caboose complete with scale interior decorated with a scale model calendar broom and working potbelly stove. The Lily Bell could pull a train with up to 12 passengers. As word spread about Carrollwood Pacific Railroad, visitors came from far away to get a glimpse of Walt's railroad. When Walt was there, he would occasionally give visitors a ride on his railroad. Some people claim that this was where Walt got the idea to create Disneyland. When Disney was in the early planning stages of Disneyland, he described it this way: "I just want it to look like nothing else in the world, and it should be surrounded by a train." A train was the one certainty from the very beginning. Every Disney park in the world includes a train, and they're usually the most popular rides in the parks. You know, Walt changed the way engineers designed theme parks. Most theme parks and zoos that we visit today have trains that visitors can ride. Parents and grandparents often use the train ride as a way to take a break from walking and to relax for a few glorious moments. So the next time you're at a park or a zoo and you take a relaxing train ride, think of Walt Disney and his Carrollwood Pacific Railway. If it hadn't been for Walt's obsession with trains, those relaxing train rides wouldn't exist. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And as Paul Harvey would say, good day.